And we're on. So welcome everybody to this wonderful session of What Works for Me Might Work for You, another one of our OTF Connects webinar series. Today's session is entitled Just Blended, Inquiry and Blended Learning in the History and Social Science Classroom, presented by Rachel Collishaw and Jan Haskings-Winner. My name is Lindy Amato and I will be your moderator, which is really exciting for me, especially since I know that Rachel and Jan are really excellent at the work that they do. I will read their bios for you in a tiny bit, but first I just want to acknowledge that although we are all across this province, we are acknowledging that we're gathered in the territories of various Indigenous peoples, and we further recognize their stewardship of these lands in which we live, learn, work, and play. So, without further ado, let's talk a little bit about Rachel and Jan. Rachel is the president of the Ontario History and Social Science Teachers Association and the Social Studies Educators Network of Canada. She's been teaching for over 20 years and worked as an instructional coach with the Ottawa-Carleton District School Board. Rachel's the author of several textbooks and learning resources that emphasize inquiry and historical thinking, and she's also a recipient of the 2013 Governor General's History Award for excellence in teaching, which that just so impresses me, Rachel, truly. She's currently on secondment to Elections Canada as an education specialist, where she's developed resources to support educators in teaching about elections and democracy. So as if one fantastic facilitator is not enough, let's go on to Jan, who's joining us from Scarborough today. And Jan has taught for 35 years, from Malaysia to Northern and Central Ontario, and most recently in Toronto. She calls herself a failed retiree, and that's a really cool thing to be as far as I'm concerned. She's now a principal in St. Lucia. Jan worked as a board consultant, she taught at OISE, and now online with Queen's AQ programs. She's written and or reviewed curriculum and resources from 2000 to 2018. Jan is the treasurer of OHASTA and a past president. She's an author, mentor to countless teachers, and is always learning. Jan's philosophy is, teaching is a work in progress, and I cannot agree more with you on that. So, without further ado, I have stopped sharing, and I am handing over to Rachel and Jan. Welcome. I will put your bios into the chat in a moment, but over to you guys.
Okay, Rachel, you're on mute. Rachel, unmute.
Yep, done. Here I am, unmuted.
Yeah. Excellent, excellent.
Okay, so I had the thing ready. So welcome to our webinar, and hello. So I'm gonna let Jan introduce this slide while I get the rest of my tech working.
All right, so don't make it go away. It'll be too fast for me. Okay, so just one thing we always want to suggest, if you are on Twitter, this is a blended kind of idea of a webinar. If you're on Twitter, to follow both Rachel and myself. And we're also using the, what's the word, Rachel?
Hashtag.
Hashtag, thank you, OHASTA Blends, because we are both with the subject association called OHASTA, Ontario History and Social Science Teachers Association, in case you are not familiar. So as you go through your learning, if you want to send something, ask a question, make a comment, whatever it is, use that hashtag OHASTA Blends, and then that will be part of our conversation as well for today. Okay.
Great. And that hashtag we started with our session or summer learning in 2016. So this is really a condensation and extension of that. Go ahead, Jan.
Okay, so we want to kind of get to know each other. So one of the things we would like you to do is change your name. If you notice that Rachel, myself, and Lindy have our name and then where we're from. So to do that, you just go to the 3 dots by your name, where your name is, right? Oh, sorry. I'm trying to do it on Rachel's, it doesn't work. Okay. And you can rename yourself. So rename yourself So my Scarborough is not really my name. That's just where I am located at the moment. So we want to kind of get a sense of where everybody is from, because we're hoping that you are from the entire province. And so that is what we would like you to do. When we'll be going into breakout groups, and you can do a bit of a more of an introduction to yourself. But since we only have an hour to introduce all of our 64 people, we would not get very far across the room, although I actually really think that's important. So our way of kind of adapting that is if you could just change your name. You can have your full name or your first name and your location where you are from. Okay.
And we're going to ask Lindy to launch the first poll as well. So your 2 jobs right now are to change your name so it includes where you're at, and then to answer the poll that Lindy's going to share.
Are you seeing that or not?
Nope.
Okay, hold on a second. I think because we launched it before, it didn't like it. So let's try and relaunch. And off we go.
There it is. Yeah.
Lovely.
So if you've not done this before, you just click the correct answers, or the correct answers, the only answer for you. And then we will then get the results of which one you are. Christine, if you did it at the beginning, yes, because I don't think we counted that one.
Yeah, we didn't count it. I erased it.
That was our practice one because you were in early.
Just waiting for a few more people to respond. Don't hold back because it's completely anonymous. Nobody will know what you've answered. So.
Oh, it's exciting to see the results coming in.
I can't see the results coming in. So I will be like, surprise.
Okay, I don't see any changes happening, so I'm going to give you 5-second countdown, and then I'm going to end the poll. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and we'll end that, and we will share the results.
Okay.
Okay.
We've got a great mix of 7, 8, and we said 9 to 10. We meant to say 9 to 12. Oh well.
Okay, so that must be what other means. Okay.
E-learning courses.
1/3.
Yeah. Interesting spread.
Oh.
Okay.
Thank
Thank
you,
you everybody
Kelly.
for sharing.
Thank you for Kelly for explaining. Oh, look at that number of social sciences is very high. Okay.
I know, that's great. I'm very excited about that. Okay, so we're going to carry on. Jan, you're going to explain the learning goals.
Yes. So it's what we are hoping that you can sort of understand principles of blended learning as well as using that inquiry-based activities. It's not just content when we're talking about blended learning. And of course, we've moved into this remote learning reality, I guess that's the word, right now. But probably we're going to have some kind of blended learning in the future, I'm guessing. So it's kind of good timing. And then how to plan blended strategies for disciplinary thinking in the history and social sciences. So those are our 2 goals. We tried to keep it short since it's a short time.
Yeah, and if you have any personal learning goals that you're interested in learning about during this less than 1 hour, please feel free to throw them into the chat, and Lindy will try and pick those up and relay them to us. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about blended learning. So this is that basics of a blended learning environment. And I'm going to share with you 4 hallmarks of blended learning. So this I got from a great video, and I've got the reference to that on the next slide, but I just thought we'd summarize it since we don't have a lot of time. So I'm going to share these 4 examples, and then we're going to look at specific examples embedded within the history and social science curriculum throughout the rest of the presentation part of the webinar. So the first hallmark is a seamless connection between online and offline work. So that's the idea that whatever you do online, you then bring into the face-to-face classroom. And what you do in the face-to-face classroom then can also live online. So for example, you might do an activity in your face-to-face classroom and then have students reflect and think about it in a discussion board online, and then when they come back to class, you can pick up some of those threads from that discussion board and discuss it further. So that's just a really simple example. We're going to have lots more. So hallmark number 2, the longest one. So increase student to teacher and student to student collaboration and control over the time, pace, path, place of learning. It's like a tongue twister. So we are going to give a bunch of examples of this, but the short of it is that students have more time to collaborate with each other and with you in smaller groups or one-on-one, and they can choose. They have more choice over what path they take in the learning. So an example of that is if, here's the 5 topics, students can do them in any order. They don't have to wait for you to do a lecture. They can take more time on some, less time on others. So that's that kind of idea. The third hallmark is a virtual learning environment. So if you're really doing blended learning, you're using Brightspace, which is what we have access to in Ontario, and you're in that VLE or virtual learning environment. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. So there's lots of already some great content in history and social sciences that's already loaded into Brightspace that you can already use. But if you don't want to use the content, or if the content's not available or not appropriate, you can just use the threaded discussion features. And every school board has a technology-enabled learning teacher or coach who can help you get started. And there's lots of, you probably have colleagues who've taught e-learning. I noticed there weren't a huge number of e-learning teachers here, but you probably know other people who can help you navigate in that environment. My school board's offering lots of summer PD on navigating in this environment, and I think it's going to be really an important thing for all of us to do. And the last one is my favorite, repurposed time. So for us in history and social sciences, this is so important because we want to have fewer lectures, we want to have more analyzing of text. It can even give you more one-on-one time with each student or with small groups. So, I mean, it sounds pretty great. So let's take a look at some examples. So here's the reference. So this is, it's called Blended Learning and Technology Integration. It's a video by Jen Johnson, and we'll share the link after so you can go and take a look at it. But it's like 8 minutes long, so we don't got time for that today. All right,
Give you
Jen.
the short version.
Yeah, over to you.
Okay, so we are looking at how can blended learning support the inquiry process. So you've probably seen this little image on the right because you've been teaching Canadian World Studies, and the social sciences has a similar one as well, to kind of do this inquiry process. So we are now going to do another Zoom poll. Correct?
Yep, that's correct.
I'm here.
Okay.
Here goes. Poll
Okay.
number 2.
Poll number 2.
Two questions.
That's shorter than the last one.
It's fun watching it come in, Jan.
We're the privileged ones. We get to see what people are answering, but we don't know who's answering. So that's the good thing.
It's fantastic.
And there's I don't know how much of the poll you see. You might have to scroll down to get the very last option under question 2, which is communicate ideas. Looks like most people are finding that. I think that's it for the responses. I'm not seeing anything else.
Wait. So a couple things. So you just put your dot, you put your mouse on beside your spot, and then push submit at the bottom. There's a couple people who are having trouble
Submitting.
Yes. Chantel from Fort Frances can't make it work.
I wonder why.
Chantal, I'm so glad you're here all the way from Fort Frances. That makes me very happy.
We just don't know why that happens. Maybe it's clearing, but it's actually registering what you've said. It's very difficult.
Yeah, it's an imperfect tool, that's for sure.
Okay.
Just so that you know, it's telling me that it's had 53 of 64 people answering. Yeah, you can only answer one option.
Yeah.
But you should be able to answer both questions. So, yeah. Okay, I'm going to end it and share the results with everybody.
Yeah, so I love that people can see the connection already. That's fantastic.
Yes. How do you get in? Not sure your question was, because the poll is gone now, Monica, so you can't see it anymore. It would have been on the screen, and then you would just answer from the screen, but it's now gone, so you can't do it now. It's past that time, but you can see you should be able to see the results on your screen now, right? So basically 2/3 people can easily see how blended learning and inquiry work together, which is actually probably why you're here. So that's good. And the other third kind of hope so, but they're not sure how to do it. So you're the perfect group to be here.
Also good.
Okay. So Monica can't see the results. Is it not showing up on your screen, Monica? Something is very bizarre.
Yeah, Jan, I think we just carry on. And
yeah, I am. Yes, I am. And then everybody, it's kind of split there, but a lot of people can see the communication side. But I hope that you can, after today, you'll be able to see the other parts as well, the drawing conclusions, the evidence. Gather and organize, I think we do that instinctively because of the online model. But formulate questions, which I find students have the most trouble doing. So we'll see, hopefully you'll be able to see all aspects of the inquiry process as we go through today.
Okay. Still you, Jan.
Good point, Zoe. We should have had all of the above as one of the choices. Good point. All right, now, disciplinary thinking. For if you teach history, economics, law, or politics/civics, you are familiar that since 2015, we've had disciplinary thinking. And so what we have here, these 4 posters were created by OHASTA when that curriculum first came out. And we have a concept attainment Google form, which is now in the chat. And I would like you to go there and try try this Google form.
So there's a few questions here. Just wait till we see some responses.
Yes. So the link is in the chat. So you click on the link in the chat, and then that'll take you to this form, and then you answer the questions. And we're focusing on historical thinking because there's 4 of them, and we can't do them all.
And also, I noticed that there were a lot of people interested in history teaching. So
yes.
So that's good.
Yes, that's just lucky, but we'll say we planned it. Yes.
Yeah, totally planned.
Yes. Oh, good. Now we're getting the responses. Excellent.
Yeah, takes them. They got to read it, Jan.
I know.
We're blabbing at them.
First, they have to go to the link. Then they have to read it and answer the questions, and then they have to be done. I know. It takes
and they also have to ignore us.
While they're doing all the questions, yes.
Okay, I'm gonna go to, should I go to the responses yet?
No.
Oh, no, we're gonna wait.
We don't want to influence them, and that's only like 1/3 of them, so we need to let them have time. Kathy says she can't go into the chat, Kathy, and click on the link. And then you should just be able to click it, just a Google form. Okay. Great. Yay, Chantal, this time.
So yeah, so one of the things that we really wanted to do with this webinar today is to show you a bunch of different ways you can blend in different tools that you might have access to. So that's why we did the polls, and now we're doing a form, and you kind of pick the tool that you think is going to work better for whatever you're planning to do. We've got 45 answers, Jan. I think we're good.
Okay.
Okay.
A student explains influence the role of women today. Okay.
So we've got most people say that's yes.
Okay.
Oh, we have quite a good disagreement on insulin. So yes, no, maybe.
Okay. We're going to talk about it. Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so mostly yes on that one. Okay, so it's good that we're having this conversation. I think Rachel and I would disagree on some of these. Okay.
Depends on the interpretation.
Yes. Okay, so Rachel, can you go up to, let's start with insulin, maybe.
Okay.
Okay. So if a student thinks it's significant because of a personal connection, that doesn't actually go to the historical significance. So look at the concepts of historical thinking to support the actual invention kind of stuff, right? So it might be personally important, but it's not necessarily historically significant, right? So this is where we kind of have to help students kind of think about why we choose things that it also influences how we teach, right? As a teacher, we pick topics because they're significant to us or relevant or whatever kind of stuff, right? So, and then if you slide down to the Vimy Ridge one, right?
Oh, Vimy Ridge.
Vimy Ridge, just for a second.
Most people said yes.
Yes, right? And I mean, I think you could argue yes, but I think you could also argue, like, I mean, I argue that Vimy Ridge is not historically significant at all. It's all a kind of a construct of somebody's military perspective and arguing that it's not. But that's a kind of a conversation you have and the question is not, Vimy Ridge was a defining moment, but, to what degree was Vimy Ridge a historically significant event? And the answer is, you can argue both sides. That makes it a good question.
Yeah. But I think in this case, with this example, the student has demonstrated by referencing evidence, right? And saying how it's more significant after a certain event.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. By criteria. The taking notes, this one here I would sort of challenge a little bit. The 5 W's, straight, who, what, where, when, why, is not historically significant. That's a literacy skill. It's very important. But how do we turn this up to make it, using the evidence to make it more more of the history piece? And they still need to know the 5 W's. They can't do anything with it, but how do we help them extend the historical thinking component beyond 5 W's? Because really they're just writing down some information from the page here. They're not thinking it through.
So a way that you could turn that into historical thinking is by saying, who created it, when did they create it, why did they create it, etc. Not just taking the facts literally from the primary source. I think we need to move along, Jen.
Yes, I know. Time is flashing. Okay. Moving on. Yeah.
All right. Okay. So, all right. So we're going to give you some blended learning classroom examples. So these are things that Jan or I have used in our classrooms, and or we've used in some way, and we've imagined how we might blend them. So the first example, so this is, as Lindy mentioned, I'm currently on a secondment with Elections Canada, and this is one of our resources that we created. And I created this super fun Google Draw where you can take this and turn it into a flipped classroom. So I'm going to go over here to show you how this works. So the flipped classroom is usually when students explore content online and then they discuss the content in the face-to-face classroom. And this was one of the first kind of blended learning things that came into educational circles, and it really came from a post-secondary perspective where you might record a lecture online and then students come into class and you can then discuss. Lectures, it's not really what we're doing in high school as much. We're trying to reduce that. It's not always as engaging, and what we find that high school students really need to be more engaged. So watch a video or have some manipulatives or something like that. So the flip is like a basic blend. So you put part of it online and then you discuss after. So this is an interactive. It's a historical thinking concept. You'll recognize the either timeline with attitude or living graph. And it's a way to explore continuity and change, which is one of the historical thinking concepts. And so what I've done is I've taken these cards, which are actual physical cards that are part of our learning kit, and I've made them into images that you can just drag around. So students have to put them on the timeline in the right place, and then also think about where they go on the inclusion to exclusion scale. And then we also have a turning point frame that you can put on top of the item that you think might be a turning point. So this is just done in Google Draw with a bunch of images, and you can share it with your students. And if you put a / copy, they have to make their own copy. So it's a way that they can collaborate in small groups or online, and then when you come back into the regular classroom, you can have that conversation and do the consolidation part of that lesson. So the next one that I want to show you is something from the virtual learning environment. So this is straight from the CHY4U, World History 1500 to the present, Unit 4, Activity 3. So this is an example of some of the content that's in there. This is what we call learning objects. So each of these squares are also very similar to that sort of Google Draw thing that I just made. They're actually little things you can drag around. So you can see, so this is relating to all the content that the students have read above, and students can think about whether this was decline or progress. So based on their reading above, and then they can take a screen capture and share that. So this is really getting into that analysis part of the inquiry process, as well as, you know, this is something they do online, and then you can discuss it in real life, making that sort of seamless connection between those two environments. Jan.
Okay, so another a thing that you can do is called Edpuzzle, which is really an awesome approach here. So
you want me to show it?
I do in one set. So I'm just going to say what happens is you take a video, and if you are in class, you often stop and start the video as you're teaching. But if you are not in class because it's remote learning or because you want them to do it at home, Edpuzzle is the answer for you. As you will see with this awesome, very short video.
Okay, so I just want to make sure, I think I'm screen sharing.
Yep, we can see.
Optimized. So here we go. I want you to take a close look and let me know what you can see in this shot. So I set this up so I can see that it's cannons. So I'm going to click on cannons. There they are. I got it right. Yay! Cannons are a really important sign because they help the archaeologists identify that this was in fact the era, one of Franklin's ships. There we go.
So when we're going to break you out into different groups and things, and which some of you will get to look at this and the other one as well. But the idea here is this is a great way to get students to stop and think instead of just tuning out to our really wonderful, important videos we want them to watch. You can create it yourself. It's a very easy tech activity to do.
Yeah. And I think in terms of the blending connection, this is a really great example where this tool can give students increased control over the time, pace, and place of learning.
Yeah. And they can do it more than once. And if they get it wrong the first time, it doesn't matter because only they know, and they still get the correct answer after. Okay, this one is also from the VLE. Again, this is on economics because we had some nice people saying they wanted to know economics in the group here, right? And this is from the idea of economic thinking, which is there's the historical thinking, political thinking, and legal thinking, and geographic thinking, although we're not talking about them today. And this is a way, when you actually go into the activity, you'll actually, here we go, you'll be actually going to do an economic spectrum activity here. You're going to actually click on one. You answer these questions, and then it'll tell you where you fall on the economic spectrum, not on the political spectrum. And I will give credit to my colleague who I worked with on this course, Zoe, who is actually on with us today here. This was her brilliant activity, and I've actually used it in my class to very great success. I can tell you, if you teach economics, that this is an awesome activity.
Yeah, and I think you know, it really speaks to the diversity of learning objects that you can find in the VLE. There's, I mean, we just showed you two, but there's like a lot of different really cool things.
And the Canadian and World Studies courses are, you know, the recent ones are really awesome with all these kinds of great interactive activities.
Yeah. Okay, so back to me. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about Hyperduck. So if you don't know yet, a Hyperduck is just a really simple way to blend. So it's a Google Doc that has a table and links and maybe colors if you get fancy. This one has colors. This emerged out of some work that I did with teachers in the Ottawa Carleton District School Board. Sherry, who is here today, worked on this with me. The thing that's really cool about this, so this is a Hyperduck that we actually created for teachers, which is why it's bilingual. So we made this for the HSP students at the college level and in French immersion, particularly because we wanted to support them with literacy supports. Here's what you get. So if I click on this link, I can get into the strategy. So here's the strategy that I want you to use with a text. So I can just assign any text that we might be reading. And we really worked hard on making these relevant to the anthro-psych-soc disciplines and helping students to understand what each of those disciplines were really getting at. I'll show you just one other example, which I'm really proud of, and I know Sherry uses in her classroom all the time, which is the Freyer model for disciplinary literacy. So really thinking about what are the questions that we should be asking as we're reading a particular type of text. So you might have seen a Freyer model that's just like sort of, summarizing, but we really wanted kids to get into thinking about that. So back to the Hyperduck and the blending. So using a strategy like this can really help you give your students control over the path of their learning. So what is the path that they're going to pick? So you're going to assign the reading, but they can pick one of these 5 strategies and you work through it, and then students could compare, well, I use this strategy and that helped me in this way, and maybe students get different things by using different strategies.
Rachel, there was a question about accessing the VLE, the virtual learning environment that is accessible through eLearning Ontario, and Jan has put that into the chat. But I think some people don't actually know where you go to find that. Okay, so where you go, so what I'm showing here in my screen, this is from the provincial Learn at Home resources. So they've just put all these courses up here, but they're missing all of the pieces where students connect in discussions and submit assessments. I mean, they don't even have the assessments listed on here, it's just content. You access it through your own school board. So you go through your school board portal and you look for the VLE, and then, so there's a different method to access it for every school board. They set it up in different ways. So, but you do need to access it through your own school board portal. So, yeah. So I wouldn't bother trying to do that right now. Like do that after this webinar.
Yes, yeah.
find the people you need to ask.
Yes.
Thanks for the clarification, Rachel. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Yes, that is always a point of confusion. Okay.
And then the last one we're going to look at is using the idea of the flipped classroom. Second last. Oh yes, sorry, I'm racing along here, right? So this is a resource outside of anything to do with the ministry. You'll get everything at the end, people. This is from the Red Cross, and they will be they have this great activity where you actually watch it's a series of stories, I guess it is, right? You get to choose
interactive story, yeah.
And then you answer, like, here's an example of you're answering a question. So if you want to go to that for a second.
I actually, the one that I pulled up is, okay, well, let's go in.
Okay. So here's the 3 choices that you have. You can just pick whichever, they're all different stories. Some of them are pretty, well, they're all serious, actually, a little bit more traumatic than others, perhaps, right? So you read a little bit about it, and then you have to make a choice. Right? About? Not yet.
I think there's a few more clicks.
Okay, soon you have to make, okay, here we go. Here you have to make a choice. And we won't go through the whole thing because there's a lot, actually, right? But at the end, you get to see the path that goes on that you took. And then you can do it over again and make a different choice and get a different result, essentially, right? So this is an example of repurposed time, right? So that you would be able to ask kids to do this outside of class and come in and discuss. You could post it, if you're having a Google Classroom, or if you're on Brightspace, whichever you are, right? You could have kids post their responses and to what happened to the person that they chose, and really get into some of those really serious. This is around the idea of forced relocations and things like that. So it's very good for grade 12 law for sure.
Yeah, and so they've also got a little bit of sort of fun facts, or not fun facts, interesting facts, and then often they've linked to their teacher resources. So Educating for Humanitarian Law, they've got a lot of great resources that are just embedded in these little stories. So, and I'm going to tell you that this is really the last example. So this is blended learning stations in civics. So I did this with another group of teachers in my school board, thanks to OTF and the Teacher Learning Co-op funding, which I don't believe is going on now, but there's tons of resources from all kinds of groups of teachers across the province that have built these. Lindy?
Yeah, not going on right now, but yes, there you can access all of those resources that were created by teachers like Rachel and others. Wonderful resources. So.
Yeah, so, and you can see sort of our whole learning process, like what we set out to learn and what roadblocks we came up with. And so what we did, so this is where we ended up was doing these blended learning stations. So this is actually, like, it does all the things. You get your repurposed time and your increased collaboration and all of those things. And I'll just highlight a couple of things. So I'll just go to this actual, so this is, again, just a Google Draw with links. So it works like a Hyperduck. So one of the things that we did, and we rejigged these after doing it with students, but what we found was that this station, Speaker's Corner, where we had students just record, I think we had an iPad, or they could use their phones or whatever, but just record like a couple of minutes of a rant of something that really bothered them. And so that really helped us hear the students' voices. So they said things like, oh, I don't like the cold, or I don't like vegetables, or I think 16-year-olds should vote, or, you know, everything, like everything in between and everything beyond. So we really were able to hear their voices at the beginning. And one of the things that we found, so in this station 4, we had students going into a shared Google Doc to kind of basically, I can show you, fill out who are civic role models. So, and at first we had students each with their own Chromebook, because we had, 4. But we found they weren't collaborating. So we were really interested in having them talk to each other and collaborate as they were working, both in the online and the in the face-to-face world. So we had them Google, we had them like figure out who their role models were, and really worked hard to increase their collaboration. So we're really increasing that student-to-student collaboration and increasing the student-to-teacher collaboration by setting up a whole bunch of different learning experiences. And we did this right at the beginning of the civics course, so we could kind of get some diagnostic and some information about them and get them into this big question of the civics course, which is, what is a civic issue that I care about? And so you're going to get all the links to all of this stuff. Don't worry about it.
Yes. And I think we'll just ask if somebody has something to share, just a few to share, because we don't have that much time left, right? So It looks like most people are back now.
Rachel, you'll have to make me a host again, I think, at some point.
Yep,
I think there's a bit of, I think it might have been a bit of overload in the Google chat a little bit. People couldn't get into the doc easily, right? So 60 people all typing at the same time could be limiting, I'm guessing.
My group was awesome, and we managed just fine.
Of course we did, yes. Mine also. So I'm just going to ask if somebody has something, a treasure they want to, a treasure, not a treasure, but treasure, my mind is always there, of something that they want to share. Thank you, that's a good one. You can type a little point if you want. There's the pros and cons. Usually you don't have this many people in Zoom all at the same time, but it's still a awesome, you're kicked back into the main group. Yes, you can't stay. Is there something from the resource that you want to share as well? Anybody besides the technology? I know we're blended, but we're hoping you like some of the technology as well as the
yeah. So just so that everybody knows, and I know some of you had trouble with the breakout rooms, we will be sharing this Google Doc with everybody's comments and questions. And Jan and I will we'll try and respond to as many as we can. And feel free to carry on the conversation.
Yeah. Okay, so now we just want to, as we close out here, right? Can you explain this, Rachel?
Sure. So some of you might have used a Flipgrid before. I heard somebody being very excited about it. So how Flipgrid works is it's basically a video. We're using it as a video exit card. So I believe I have it up here.
You use a tool like easybib.com.
Oh, somebody's
go to a separate
audio is
website
on.
and get logged in.
That is not mine.
And then you bring it over to create a separate document. But what I'm showing you is that there's
Is that you,
Lindy,
Rachel, or
can
is
you
that
mute
someone else
everybody?
we're getting?
It's something she doesn't want to be on.
Yeah.
Bibliographies if you only
Lindy, I think there's a button at the bottom where you can just mute everybody.
way to do this.
Okay, I'm going to mute everybody.
Yeah. Thank.
Okay,
I'm unmuting myself. So this Flipgrid will bring you here, and I made a little intro video. Hi, welcome to Flipgrid. I hope that you can find something, share with us about what you learned today, whether it was a treasure or a question that you still have. Promise, we'll give you feedback right here. Thanks so much for coming today. Really appreciate it. Okay, so when you're ready to give your little video response, you just click the big plus sign, and then you can record a little video. You can re-record it if you don't like it. You can put stickers on it. You can make it as long or as short as you want for students. You can give students multiple questions. If you want to try it out, that's great. Jan and I will watch them, and we'll give you feedback, and so we can record a video feedback right back to you. Yeah, and so the password is in the chat. It's also, or it's going to be in the chat. I don't know if it's there yet. It's also on the this document down at the bottom. Webinar 2020 is the password. Yeah, so share what you liked, share what your questions are, and we'll give you some feedback as well. Oh, I'm not sure what happened to I used the wrong font here. Technology is our friend.
It happens. Are there any last questions that people would like to ask? I see that we're right at 5 p.m. I think what I'm going to do is thank you two very, very much formally, and then I'm going to stop recording. And if we have other questions, maybe you'd be willing to just hang out for a little bit longer so that people can ask those. I just wanted to add that I thought the session was awesome and I really enjoyed the breakout rooms. It's my first time in breakout rooms, so thank you for that learning. So let's just